Is it a coincidence that Montego Bay has seen an increase in satanic activity, which it is speculated to be connected to the dreadful crimes that have occurred? The Jamaica Observer of April 28, 2016 screamed, "Demonic! Pastor cops say financial occultism behind St. James bloodshed." Is it a coincidence that the then Minister of National Security, Robert Montague, was reported in the Jamaica Observer on Tuesday, January 23, 20, as having told Parliament that security forces have discovered several altars to facilitate devil worshipping in sections of the island? He was quoted as saying, and I quote, "Some people are playing with things they know nothing about and open gates they cannot close. Sir, the trend is disturbing and must be stopped." He went on to say that the discovery of devil-worshipping altars is a most dangerous trend, and the clergy is also disturbed by the occurrence. He added that the savagery, the brutality, and the horrific nature of some crimes point to sacrifices to these evil forces. So, is it a coincidence that many of those who stare down our criminals feel incomplete without their gatherings? I'm wondering. And then I saw the article in the Star, October 10, 2017. I know it's a tabloid, but you know, every time you see something like that, you say it near so or it goes so. It reported that the gangsters now holding sway in Montego Bay were said to be self-possessed devil worshippers and highlighted their satanic allegiance by tattooing demonic symbols on their bodies. It mentioned that the scammers were involved in the blood sacrifices and the drinking of blood. Have you, Abko, seen the intense video by Yahoo Boys?
I haven't.
You haven't?
No.
They say art imitates life. Well, to my mind, that video confirms it. So the connection between demons and crime in Montego Bay. I wonder, is this another timely coincidence? And still in Montego Bay, on March 14, 2018, a senior Jamaica Defense Force officer suggested that demonic forces are influencing crime in St. James, where a state of public emergency was imposed in January, and the authorities are not equipped to deal with it. Colonel Danielle George Price, who was then the JDF's intelligence and operations officer, said, and I quote, "We wrestle not against flesh and blood. This war is not physical, and therefore it takes a spiritual response." No doubt you will recall, without a shadow of a doubt, the then Security Minister Peter Bunting in 2013, who got a scathing for daring to say at a police appreciation ceremony that the best efforts of the security forces by itself will not solve the crime problem in Jamaica. It's going to take divine intervention. So on my mind this morning, at the risk of being ridiculed, is there a spiritual connection to the horrible crimes we are experiencing? Are all these comments merely coincidences, or are they clues to our reality? If we publicly acknowledge a spiritual connection, is it sending the wrong signal? And why is there fear in acknowledging such a connection? Is this the final stance of the church as we know it? And when I say church, I mean not the edifice or the building, but the people who are called Christians, the congregants, the churchgoers. Is this a challenge to their faith, to our faith? How do our leaders respond to this crisis? If there is a spiritual response, what is it? Is this a 2 Chronicles 7 verse 14 moment? Or will we continue with only a physical strategy to crime? To my mind, I think, and this is just what's canvassing in my thoughts, we must have a real conversation and appreciation about the realistic association between crime and spirituality to understand and effectively combat our climbing crime rate. But this is where I grapple with the thoughts that cascade in my mind. In leading this charge, I wonder whether the image and reputation of our church leaders has been so tarnished by criminal convictions, sexual offense allegations, financial improprieties, including fraud, hypocrisy in all forms, and now this, the Pathway Massacre. How do you and how do they restore confidence in the leadership of the church and to the faith? Can trust in the church be restored to successfully spiritually mitigate against the demonic forces which have taken root on Jamrock? How strong is our faith? Do we have enough spiritual soldiers? And if so, will our faith survive or be restored? Or am I being ridiculous to think that spiritual soldiers are important? I don't know. And that's why I share these questions which have arisen because of the impact of recent events and the comments made over time. I feel like we are in a race against time and a battle to save lives. And I'm spurred on by the thoughts, the prediction of an Irish scientist, Dr. Nigel Barber. He predicted that by 2041, most Jamaicans will not believe in God. So again, on my mind, is this the beginning of the end? Is the hesitance in accepting that our crime has demonic connections a coincidence? Will our failure to accept this connection lead to our demise? Is there value in acknowledging that the church plays a significant role in fighting crime? I feel as if there is much more that the church can do, but at the same time, I feel that there's so many people who have walked away because of what has happened and what continues to occur within our churches. And I struggle with trying to connect the utterances of musicians and criminals and those within the law enforcement occupations about the experience and the existence of this connection. Prior to finding Winchell last week, Ricardo Brooks, a nationwide reporter, mentioned that just before she found, her relatives sprinkled a mixture of rum, sugar, and water around the tomb of her ancestors. Upon hearing that, I will say that there was an admission of a spiritual connection. And the word yesterday, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but I tell you there is always a connection. Fusion, which means sacrificing spiritual values for power, knowledge, or material gain. Are we parties, willingly or unwillingly, to a fusion bargain? I have no answers. But as they say, believe kill and believe cure. So I raise these questions because I take comfort in knowing that there are many of us, there are others like myself, who in the silence of their thoughts and in the solitude of their rooms, their offices, ponder the very same thing. Is there a spiritual connection to our crimes? And should we take a look at that? That's, Abga, is what's on my mind.